Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of Movie Battleground. Tonight, we've got two great fighters. We've got three great questions, so let's jump right into it. Before we get started, we'll do our introductions for our players. Coming in first, you know him, you love him. He's Chance, the Cobra Ellison. Chance, how you doing today? How you feeling about tonight's match?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been a while since I've been back in the Battleground ring, but spent time arguing with myself under a waterfall, so I'm good.
All right, and his opponent. He's coming in with an undefeated record of 2-0. It is Andy, the Educator Woods. Andy, take it on Chance tonight. How are you feeling?
Yeah, interesting. Not really a match I was expecting, so I'll just enjoy it. It's going to be fun. I actually didn't think I thought he was like retired, so I'm glad I brought him back. So we're good.
Brought him back just for you.
Yeah, special.
My name is Kirk Holkowski. I will be your host and lead judge tonight. Joining me is Doug, the Irishman Castle. And Doug, what are your thoughts on tonight's match?
Ooh, this is going to be a fun one. I'm excited.
And our third judge running out the panel tonight, we got Max. Max, how are you doing?
What's up? This is going to be probably one of the best movie battleground matches we've got. I'm looking forward to it.
I have that feeling too. Okay, guys, before we get started, real quick, we'll go over the rules. We have 3 rounds, 3 different questions. You will have 1 minute to open. 90 seconds to open. You will have 5 minutes of general battle time. And at the end of that period, you will have 60 seconds closing the piece. You do each have the option of expanding one of the rounds to 6 minutes instead of 5. Just give me a heads up at some point if you want to do that during one of the questions. If need be, there will be a speed round, and we'll go over those rules when the time comes. That being said, Chance, are you ready?
Ready.
Andy, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, let's fight it out. Question number 1. With John Wick 3 being released, what is the best action movie of the 1980s? And Chance, let's go to you first. I just need to get my timer set. And whenever you're ready.
How long do I have to open?
90 seconds.
90 seconds? Okay.
90, yes. And we'll start whenever you begin talking.
You know, the 80s was this is a good question because the 80s was a decade where action movies kind of really got that's where they really got their feel out. And there's a lot of great choices they could have gone with, but ultimately, I think there's only one like real option, that is 1988's Die Hard. And I'm ready to I'm ready to talk more about this movie, but that's all I'm gonna say about it at this point.
All right, Die Hard, excellent choice. Andy, what's your pick to go up against that? You got 90 seconds to start.
Yeah, awesome. First off, shout out to the question writers for the incredible reach of matching John Wick 3 with 80s action movies. That was a great shout. I've gone with Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. Again, like Chance got hit the hammer on head, or whatever the saying is. Great year or great decade for action movies, but this is sort of the best one. It's full throttle, all-out action, great stunt work, great camera work to aid the stunts. It's very legitimate, doesn't rely on budgets or shaky cam or cut editing or whatever. I think it's the rawest action film out there, and I'm happy to move that into regular arguments. So,
all right, best of the 80s. We have Die Hard, and we have Mad Max 2. So, gentlemen, you have 5 minutes. Your time will begin whenever you start fighting. Duke it out.
Okay, now I will say Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior, fantastic film. It was the movie that really kind of cemented the Mad Max signature style. However, the style's been done better in other sequels, mainly Fury Road. Fury Road is the main hindrance of Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior because really, since we have Fury Road, which is fucking excellent, like Mad Max 2 it's just not as exciting as it used to be anymore.
I'm gonna sort of I completely agree on your point, but I also don't think Mad Max Fury Road is particularly relevant to the 2015 film. And I also don't think it's a particular shame that it's an inspiration to so many things. It's an inspiration to the Terminator. James Cameron said that himself. So the fact that it was so revolutionary and people use these techniques and this style of action hero in their own other films, I don't think works against it at all. I think you've got to respect the pioneers in that way.
Well, you do guys like pioneer, but if we're going back to the next year, like you didn't pioneer like the silent I got to help these people here because I was done in like spaghetti westerns regardless. However, I mean, even like the post-apocalyptic genre, that was done like plenty of time before Mad Max 2, Road Warrior, even stepped on in the cinemas. Die Hard, like there's so much that works about this movie. First of all, you got the hero John McClane, an icon in 80s action movie heroes and action heroes just in general. Just the guy who a hero we hadn't seen in the likes of, because like what made him awesome, what made him a badass was the fact that he wasn't a badass. He was just a normal guy in the situation. Up against him, you got one of the quintessential villains of action movies, Hans Gruber, played excellently by Alan Rickman, who this was his big coming out party. I believe this was his first movie ever. The dude came on and he crushed it. He commands the presence. He's sinister. He's got a lot of class to him. And not to mention, like, you have the relationship between John McClane and Al Powell, who have such incredible chemistry between the two of them, despite the fact that they never even come face to face until the very end. That kind of chemistry is nearly impossible to do, but Die Hard pulled it off, and they pulled it off beautifully.
Yeah, absolutely. John McClane is an inspiration, and Die Hard has a lot of excellent stuff to it. The action's not that great, though, if I'm being honest in Die Hard.
Oh, come on. You got,
right, so the first point, I was just watching, the first point that I really thought was like, that's a really good action scene. It comes, I mean, John McClane falls down like the elevator shaft, he gets trapped in the air shaft. Do people remember that? They don't really. They remember the quote that comes immediately after it. They remember him saying, "Oh, come on Christmas, we'll have some drinks, it'll be fun." It's all about the quotes, it's not about the action scenes. Mad Max 3 Road is known for the action, for the stunts, for the car chases.
Nobody remembers action sequences from like the action sequences because from the first few Mad Max movies are kind of hard to remember. Also, like there are only so many variations of guy drives down the road with a tricked out car firing spikes and shit. However, but like you talk about like action scenes in my movie, you got the one where he's fighting the guy and he shoots him in the balls to the table. That was a good action sequence. You got the hand to hand with the big blonde German guy who's also great in this film. There are plenty of standout action sequences aside from just the quotes, and the quotes really tag it. Not to mention that this movie gave us one of the greatest one-liners in the history of action films. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. That is it's a great line. It's a great quote. It has the best TV edits of maybe all time, which is Yippee-ki-yay, Melon Farmer. There's so much iconic stuff that started with Die Hard, which is why it stands out as the best.
There are iconic stuff, but I mean, again, it's quotes. It's a good popcorn flick. It's good to watch casually, and it's probably the best Christmas film. But as an action film, I mean, you've got a film in Mad Max, obvious variations, people running down the street. But in Mad Max 2, it was taken to a whole nother level. There was a whole scene where the guy who was doing, the stuntman who was doing it, wasn't allowed to eat for 12 hours before it. The risk of him going to hospital was so high. There was no holding back in this. What you see is what you get. And so it's not just a variation on something. It completely dominates the whole sphere of car chase scenes because it was so authentic. It was the real thing on screen. That's what you get out of Mad Max.
Well, I mean, but you also had like car chase and other movies before that. Like you had Bullet, you had the French Connection, but those ones that really defined the car chase scene. Your Mad Max 2 Road Warrior defined a very niche type of action with the post-apocalyptic car chase movies.
Die Hard pioneered Christmas films.
Well, it did. You're right. No, Die Hard did pioneer Christmas film, and also pioneered the whole type of movie where it's like one guy in a situation that's super tense.
30 seconds.
They're against him. Like how many Die Hard films exist? Like Die Hard gave us Speed, gave us Under Siege, gave us Cliffhanger, gave us White House Down, gave us.
Wow, what a legacy!
No, are you kidding me? How many writers got an elevator pitch in there by saying, okay, look, it's Die Hard on a blank. Like that gave a whole birth to it. And like
10 seconds.
A lot of Die Hard are not great, but like a lot of them are actually really solid.
I mean, it's not necessarily ones that I particularly care to check out.
That's time.
Okay.
5 minutes, gentlemen. All right, good fight. A lot of good points made. Before we go to our decision, you each get 60 seconds closing. And Chance, we'll start with you. Whenever you start talking,
okay.
60 seconds on the clock.
Mad Max 2 is a great movie, but it defined a very small portion of the action spectrum. Die Hard opened up a ton of possibilities, had perfect main character, perfect villain, perfect chemistry between the friends, tons of memorable characters, tons of memorable lines, tons of memorable action sequences. It gave birth to a whole genre of Die Hard on a blank movies. This is the most iconic action movie of the 80s. Hands down, it's a perfect film, and is easily the best action film of this decade.
Okay, good closing argument. And now, Andy, we'll go to you for your closing. 60 seconds, or you start talking.
By the time that Die Hard really gets into the peak of its action scenes, the scene you talked about with the blonde German guy and the bullet fighting on the table, it's about 1 minute 36, 1 minute 40 into the film. So you could have actually watched the whole of Mad Max 2 and had that whole adrenaline rush by the time the good part of Die Hard kicks in. Die Hard revolutionized watered down, quote heavy action films. Mad Max retains the stunt elements and the raw, authentic danger and action that is what action movies are all about, and that's why it's the best one of the decade.
Okay, good fight, gentlemen. Good arguments. But now we have to decide. Best action movie of the 80s? Is it Die Hard or is it Mad Max? I almost said Fury Road. Mad Max the Road Warrior.
There's a reason for that.
Doug, why don't we start with you? Give us your thoughts and the way you're leaning on this.
I'll gladly start with this. Listen, you melon farmers. Best quote of the night so far. It came down to a lot of points to the closing, into which what Chance said, where Mad Max is very much a niche and kind of Die Hard started this whole resurgence and pushing towards that of action and what the basic action film was. So Chance gets my point this round.
Okay, that's one for Chance. Max?
All right. Well, Die Hard brought us all those shitty action movies that Chance mentioned. White House Down.
Hey, speed is awesome. Speed
terrible
is awesome.
movies.
Speed is awesome.
I mean, aside from that, you made some pretty good points about the fact that Alan Rickman's performance is absolutely iconic. Was there a villain in The Road Warrior? I don't remember. Bruce Willis as well, John McClane, the ultimate action hero. The fact that it's a really well-staged action movie, even though the effects of Mad Max: The Road Warrior are pretty impressive, the practical effects and what George Miller was able to accomplish. But I mean, the strong points of an amazing villain, an amazing lead, and great action sequences make for probably the best action movie of the 80s is Die Hard. So I'm giving the point to Chance as well.
We start out with Chance going up 1-0. So Andy, you got a chance to catch up here with question number 2. And this one is kind of a thinker. I'm going to make sure I read this carefully. If you could have any Best Picture nominee replaced by a movie released in the same year, which would it be? So any movie replacing a Best Picture nominee from the same year it came out. And this time, Andy, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I'm going to the year
Hold
19...
on. Let me.
Sorry.
Before you start, let me get your. I want to write down here. What did you pick?
What year did I pick?
Yeah, well, just tell me the movies you picked before you start your arguments, because.
Okay, I'm putting in Blade Runner for 1982 instead of Missing.
And Chance.
Okay, I just fact check one real quick. Okay, yeah. So I decided to take out. I went 1960. I decided to take out Sons and Lovers, and I decided to put in Psycho.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. I just want to make sure I had that down before we started. So, Andy, we will start with you. Let me get my timer up here. Whenever you're ready, your 90-second opening for Blade Runner.
Okay. So 1982. I think Blade Runner absolutely should be a Best Picture nominee for that year. I mean, if you're talking about a film that is miles ahead of its time, that's the one. One of the most iconic looks and feels of a sci-fi film ever. And we'll just sort of get into why Missing just is pointless when we get to it. But yeah, Blade Runner just for being groundbreaking in many senses.
Okay. And Chance, whenever you're ready, you can start your opening argument. You have 90 seconds.
I was so scared you could make that like a trick question or something. All right, so yeah, I decided to really think about this. I decided to go all the way back and go to the year 1960, where one of the Psycho, a pinnacle of the horror genre, came out, and it was not nominated for Best Picture. And I decided to take out Sons and Lovers for reasons I will get into. later, but you look at the 1960 Best Picture nominees, Psycho needs to be represented. So yeah, I went with Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
All right, Blade Runner and Psycho, two very good movies, replacing two pretty forgettable movies. So you guys made some good choices here. But you have 5 minutes. Whenever you're ready, fight it out.
Now, I will say, Blade Runner is an absolute pinnacle of sci-fi filmmaking. Actually, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Blade Runner, the final cut, is an absolute pinnacle of sci-fi filmmaking. Now, I will say, I have seen, of the 7 different cuts of Blade Runner, I have seen 5. And I gotta say, the original, theatrical cut of Blade Runner is one of the weakest. It has the awful voiceover narration by Harrison Ford, who just sounds like he does not want to be there. He sounds like he's so bored, and it reinserts. It has the bogus happy ending, which just completely undermines the point of the entire film. And given that that's the cut that was going around 82, I completely understand why this was not nominated for Best Picture.
I think that this is a popular choice, a fair enough choice. But you look at what was out in 1982, which is one of the blander years for cinema in general, and you still get something.
That's a hardcore disagree.
I don't know. There's not a lot. I mean, I'm really not seeing a whole lot there. And to be honest, if you got something with the craft and the look and the depth of Blade Runner, even if it's not its prime form, it's still way better than the rest of the thing. Is a very sort of straightforward.
Okay, now you see, I came here to defend
drama. Not a lot happening in it. Decent performance from Jack Lemmon, maybe, but
decent.
I mean, Blade Runner's got the cut over everything going in that year.
I hardcore disagree because look, Missing came out. I think Missing. It's not as talked about nowadays, but that doesn't mean there's not good things in it. Missing was actually a monumental film for that year for a bunch of different reasons. First of all, it was the first American film to ever unanimously win the Palme d'Or at Cannes. That's a phenomenal achievement. You look at the rest of the nominees for 82. I believe it was E.T., Tootsie, Murder in the First, and Gandhi, which ended up winning. You need that representation from the indie circuit. And granted, as far as the mainstream, it's Jack Nicholson and Sissy Spacek, it's been overshadowed by a lot of their later work. But you look at that, and a mainstream thing, it's not what's talked about. But however, on the indie circuit, on the classic film circuit, on the needs to be more recognized circuit, it's huge. It even got a Criterion release. You know what didn't? Sons and Lovers, a movie that nobody remembers at all. The only thing people remember about Sons and Lovers is the fact that Donald Pleasance was in it. You can't tell me a single plot line. You can't tell me a single other actor unless you look it up on Google. Don't you cheat? And especially compared to Psycho, which was so monumental for the genre. How many things in horror got started from this one film? Alfred Hitchcock put together a horror masterpiece. You want to talk about a film that was ahead of its time? Think about this movie that showed, blood and partial nudity, and showed, spoiler alert, the main character being murdered within the first third of the film. It was a revolutionary piece of filmmaking in the 60s that they didn't understand, and also because genre films back then didn't get the respect they deserved. If they did, you bet your ass Psycho would have been nominated.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd say about 1960 is that, I mean, you could probably taken off any of the nominees that were there, apart from obviously the one that won The Apartment. I mean, I don't see The Sundowners getting a lot of respect from anyone either these days. But also, there's a whole lot more that you could have put in instead of Psycho. I mean, obviously, it's great for its genre at the time, but 1960 was a strong year, and there's a lot of other contenders you can put in there. I mean, Breathless, Jean-Luc Godard, for example, Rock on His Brothers, Le True, all these films. But again, foreign films as well don't get the love they deserve. Whereas in 1982, Blade Runner is the obvious choice. There's nothing else taking its spot. It was the film that had the depth and the originality. And you talk about the indie circuit. You don't have to have indie representation. It's not a contest of.
Well, I mean, you don't have to, but it's nice to have, especially because that was, especially in the 80s, was an area of film that wasn't super well represented. Indies didn't get a lot of respect until the mid 90s. So to see a movie like Missing come up from just from the bottom and to be on the biggest stage for movies possible, it was incredible to see. I'm sure it was incredible to see. I can't speak for it. I was not around in 1980. And like you said it yourself. There's a lot of there's a lot of forgettable nominees in the 60s, aside from The Apartment, which is a fantastic film. You could
30 seconds.
Like Psycho should have been represented, but it just wasn't. Like you're making my point for me.
I mean, I'm just saying. I think there's a lot more in 1960 that could have been nominated, and they just seem to have an off year that year. But in 1982, they didn't have an off year, but they still missed the most obvious choice, and it seemed like a strange one to me.
The thing is, Battleground back then wasn't the obvious choice because it wasn't a well received thing. It didn't have
seconds.
the brilliance or the nuance that the final cut or later cuts of the movie would have. I think that really would have detracted.
I don't see the Beastmaster doing a lot.
That's time, gentlemen. That's your 5 minutes.
Drop the Beastmaster. Goddamn. I wasn't ready for that.
Okay, that is a lot to digest. A lot of movies, a lot of information there. So let's bring it home here. Andy, whenever you are ready, you can go ahead and start your 1 minute closing.
You can pretty much go to every year and make a case for some film dropping out and some film coming in. The Academy do it every year. We're well used to it. It's how obvious the choice is. And when you have a film that looks, even the first cut, supposedly not as good, a film that looks 10 or 20 years ahead of its time and acts 10 or 20 years ahead of its time, really shouldn't be missing out the way it is. And naturally, we only came to appreciate later on with a lot more information. They should have done at the time. It should have won all the technical specs, the score and the cinematography, and the production design is far better than anything else. And they just dropped a massive clanger on that one, I'm afraid.
Okay. Chance, it's your turn. You got 60 seconds to defend Psycho over Sons and Lovers.
Like I said earlier, Blade Runner didn't really get straight to the final cut, and used for genre films that were ready at the time. The Thing, Poltergeist, and even E.T., which was nominated, all better candidates for Best Picture of that year. You look at again 1960. I could have taken at least 4 nominees out and put Psycho in because it is so iconic. It is so revolutionary. It did, like I said earlier, it did spearhead so many things that we would come to know from the horror genre. It came to subvert so many. It was ahead of its time, and it was a trendsetter both at the same time. Whereas Sons of Lovers, again, nobody remembers that film. I don't know what it is. Only thing people know about that movie is Donald Pleasance is in it. Even then, it's just forgettable. Let's take out forgettable and let's put in something that is a true icon of its time.
Okay, and that's your time. So it is decision time for us judges. And this time, Max, we're going to start with you. Who do you think made the better argument?
All right. Well, it was an easy one for me because once Chance mentioned the final cut of Blade Runner and the theatrical cut of Blade Runner, there's a big difference. The theatrical cut of Blade Runner sucks. It's terrible. It's probably one of the worst cuts of a film I've seen. Sure, it's groundbreaking. It's got a few interesting ideas, but it's nowhere near as incredible as the final cut. And if we would go back to 1982 and, watch the movie in theaters, of course it wasn't nominated for Best Picture because the movie sucked. And yes, Psycho was ahead of its time and subverted many tropes of the horror genre we know today, especially with killing the lead character within, I think it was 30 minutes of the movie, something like that.
No, it's not within the third. It's in the first half.
Yeah, that's true. But it still was ahead of its time. So I'm giving the point to Chance.
All right, that's one for Chance. And I'll go next on this one. And this was tough because it was almost 2 different fights. You're fighting for the movie you picked to replace, but also against the movie that you were taking off the list. And I think you guys were neck and neck. I mean, you both did a great job defending the movie that you wanted to put in and really push how it was ahead of its time, what it did for the genre, what it did for filmmaking. So you were pretty going toe-to-toe there. The one thing that put me over the edge, but there's only one of you that really defended the movie the other person was taking out. And Chance, you had a lot to say about the missing and why it deserved to be there. So you get my point as well. So that settles that one. That's a point for Chance. So Chance goes up 2-0. So here, Andy has a chance to stay in the game, and Chance has a chance to win it all. And our third main round question today: what is the best speech given by any character in a movie? And Chance, we'll start with you here. And whenever you're ready, you have. Let me get my timer back up. Whenever you're ready, you have 90 seconds.
Okay, so with this question, this is actually really a much more broader one than I was expecting. And when I think speech, I think inspiration. I think coming together for a righteous cause. And to me, there is no better speech that exemplifies that than President Whitmore in Independence Day. I mean, that first of all, the movie is just incredibly fun and just incredibly inspiring in its own right. But it's the speech where he says, We will not go down to the night. We will not vanish out of fights. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. We will celebrate our Independence Day. I'm going to quote a little bit there, but you get the point. And I know the quote, so don't try to use that against me. The point is, I think the speech is it's everything you want from a great speech in a movie. The point where you yourself want to get up and cheer in the audience. So that's what I'm going with.
Okay, that is one fight for Independence Day and President Whitmore. Andy, what was your pick?
So I think there was some controversy in a recent-ish Schmoedown match about the first talking picture of Charlie Chaplin. Where obviously at the end of a film called The Great Dictator, gets up on stage and he gives a very poignant speech about accepting people over boundaries, and in a parody of Nazis, and basically fights for equality. A film that actually got Charlie Chaplin banned from America, basically for fascism. It sounds like something that would have happened at the time. It's transcendent. Well, could still happen today. It's transcendent to movies then. It's transcendent to movies and society now. Rather than we'll get into arguments actually.
All right, 2 great movies, 2 great speeches. Whenever you guys are ready, battle out.
Okay, now the thing about Charlie Chaplin, The Great Dictator. First of all, I don't think the speech itself is what's iconic about that. I think what's iconic about that is the fact that it is the first time we see Charlie Chaplin speak in a movie, which was a big deal at the time. I mean, this is a guy who was world renowned for his silent movie comedy stylings and other stuff, I'm sure. But people heard it like, this is the first time we're going to hear him speak. They would have rushed the theater no matter what. Like, that speech could have been him quoting a duck for like 2.5 minutes. And I think it still would have been as impactful as it was, given the fact that it's the first time we hear him speak in a film.
Okay, I actually quite agree with that. I think if Charlie Chaplin talks on film, you go and watch it in 1940. So why then are we still now seeing it circulating on social media, talking about its relevancy?
Are we though? I am well versed in the social media. I'm on the Twitters, I'm on the Instagrams, I'm on the Facebooks. I have never seen anybody share Charlie Chaplin's speech in The Great Dictator in any way, shape, or form. Whereas every 4th of July, I see tons of videos with Bill Pullman as President Whitmore, giving a speech to the troops before they have to go off and fight aliens.
Okay, I mean that's because it has quite an easy relevancy though in terms of 4th of July. I mean, and it's quite an easy pull quote to make. This is our Independence Day, but we get lots of rousing speeches. I can go into school tomorrow and give a rousing speech and get someone to film it, and it'll get like 10 million views or whatever. It's an easy thing to do, but saying something that has genuine societal insight, you can still talk today.
I mean, World War II, Independence Day, probably about the same level of resonance and relevance. So,
but it's not just World War II. That's the thing. I mean, we're talking. There are multiple situations where we can talk about love and acceptance of others, and we're talking about a film that was portraying Nazism and World War II at the time. But now we're talking about someone like Donald Trump. You guys will know him very well. Thank God he's not over here. But we have our own problems as well. We have a lot of splits in society.
You got Brexit you got to worry about.
Well, yeah, that's going on, and we've got these things where we're not accepting people of other borders, and we're not being tolerant. And having someone come up on screen, someone noted as a possibly a silly silent film star, comes up and gives one of the most poignant sociographical insights ever put to film that is still relevant. 80 years we're going on now since it came out in 1940. It just has so much more than just a. I know it's impressive, but it's just another rousing speech. We get it in lots of movies, probably Happy Gilmore somewhere.
I mean, both our speeches trying to tackle the same thing, essentially, like unity and coming together for a righteous cause. I think a big difference between yours and mine is the fact that Great Dictator provides the satire, and that speech just feels like it's there. Like it feels like it's there to hammer in a message. Whereas my speech, it feels character driven. It feels like emotionally earned. To the fact where, actually, I lost my train of thought. Basically, what I'm trying to say is mine is based on character. Yours is based on trying to send a message. Oh, to the fact where if your speech is so inspirational, why they have to cut to like stock footage of a crowd cheering? Like they couldn't get a crowd just like come in there, stand and cheer like, "Yay, Charlie Chaplin!" Whereas with my
90 seconds,
you see the crowd react. You see the inspiration flowing through each and every one of the extras on that set that day, including the greatest extra of all time with that iconic salute.
Even if they had the budget in 1940, get a lot of extras, I don't think a perfectionist like Charlie Chaplin's going to be dealing with all those people on set. It's just never going to work out. And you know, I mean, I think if we had a dialogue with these aliens, maybe we wouldn't need this speech in the first place. Maybe we'd been more accepted.
We tried to have a dialogue with them. They blew up our helicopters and our landmarks.
Well, maybe if we played the Charlie Chaplin speech to aliens, we wouldn't have this problem then.
That wasn't the option. They came to destroy. Independence Day told me that. So Independence Day resurgence. I think like again, what separates yours and mine is the fact that mine comes from character, comes from story, whereas yours is just pretty much like, I hate to say it, it's almost like a stunt moment in that movie. Like, oh, we're gonna have Charlie Chaplin talk. Okay, people come in and yeah, and they used to like
30 seconds
like forward, like give this like hammered in message that really like the rest of the film didn't really all that well build up to.
I mean, yeah, it's a hammered in message. It's a very big, important message. I mean, the film's a parody of Nazism. It's a parody of people who are trying to block us from having the world we want. So it's not that forced in, really. I mean, you can kind of see where it's coming from. Whereas, you know, in Independence Day, you know, we've heard it. You know, I'll go down Sunday League and I'll give a speech to the guys down there, and it'll be the same thing.
Wait, time?
That's time. Yep.
Okay.
All right. So let's move on now to our 60-second closing arguments. And Chance, 60 seconds for the Independence Day speech.
Okay. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. The speech from the Great Dictator is great. However, it doesn't come to play the character. It's completely tonally out of place from the rest of the film we just watched. And not to mention, eats lunch a lot of the fact that this is the first time we're seeing Charlie Chaplin speak in a movie. Whereas Independence Day, you get that inspiration, but you also get a story around it that makes sense. You get a story around it built up to it. You get a character who uses that as a great piece of growth in that movie. Like it delivers on what you need. Whereas Charlie Chaplin's speech, you feel it. Like you see it and you hear it. Independence Day, you feel it. You feel that rush of energy in your spine. You feel the urge to stand up and clap in the theater, go USA, USA, or I guess you go England, or whatever it is you say when you're chanting. Point is, it's a speech that invigorates, speech that jacks you up, and it is easily the best speech in movies of all time.
Okay. So Andy, we'll go on to you for your closing arguments. 60 seconds to take us home on the Great Dictator speech.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, you could have replaced the Independence Day speech with a lot of different words. It was quite easy to get that crowd riled up. Everyone wants an excuse to, you know, show passion for the country. The words chosen in the Great Dictator speech had to be chosen a lot more carefully to make you think. And they do. And again, it's still a message that resonates today. And it's not something that can be easily replicated, especially not by someone who's traditionally not a serious actor, who's traditionally not even a speaking actor. It was absolutely transcendent. It's extremely vital. It's something we should all be watching, and it's not something that can be easily replicated, which Independence Day speech absolutely could be.
All right. So there we have it. Independence Day versus the Great Dictator, which is the greatest speech in movie history. All right. It's the time for us judges to do our thing. and it's my time to go first. So I thought you both did a really good job here of defending your own speech well, picking away at your opponent. Chance had a lot to good say just about how how rousing the speech is, how exciting it is, the energy on the set with the extras, and Andy had a lot of good things to say about the poignance, the relevance, and everything it had to say that's still still relevant today. The way I'm going to lean on this though is there is one thing. Chance had a lot to say about how the message was just being beaten home and driven home, and the speech seemed kind of forced in there. And I thought Andy did a really good job of punching back on that by saying, yeah, the whole movie is a parody of Nazism, and the speech at the end really wraps up the message that the whole movie was telling. Maybe not the comedic way that the rest of the movie was telling, but definitely there was a message to that entire movie. So I agree with Andy, and I'm giving him my point. Doug, we'll go to you next.
I'll try and make this as short and sweet. It came down to Andy's last sentence for me, where you could replicate that 4th of July speech and make people, actually believe in it. If you gave them that speech, I feel what Andy was saying. You can't do that with the Great Dictator speech. So Andy's getting my point for this one.
All right, that goes. That's a point to Andy. So it's 2-1. We will have a speed round. First question: speed round works like this. You will be given a question. It's an either or. Whoever picks first gets their selection. The second competitor has to take the second selection. You will have in the first question, I believe it's 30 seconds open and then 15-second rebuttal.
Okay.
So, question number 1, and whoever we hear first will get their pick. Which of these 2 comedy sequels are worse? Dumb and Dumber or Neighbors 2?
Dumb and Dumber.
Wait, I guess I'll say which Dumb and Dumber. Sorry,
Yeah,
Dumb
that's
and
what I mean.
Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber or Dumb and Dumber 2?
Or no, Dumb and Dumber or Neighbors 2?
Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll take Neighbors 2.
All right, so Chance, you have Dumb and Dumber, and Andy, you have Neighbors 2. So Chance, since you got your selection, you get to go first, and let me set my timer for 30 seconds. And go ahead and give your opening argument.
Hey everybody! Remember how much you like Dumb and Dumber? You want to see the same thing with none of the same actors, none of the same charisma, none of the same chemistry, and none of the same charm of the original? Watch Dumb and Dumber, a bullshit prequel nobody asked for, and really nobody wanted to do this, purely for financial reasons. And it was made so much so that nobody wanted to do it. They couldn't even get Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, which were the sole reason Dumb and Dumber is good, back to do that movie.
And time. Okay, and Andy, you have 30 seconds to well, I guess not defend, to attack Neighbors 2.
Yeah, I'm not defending Neighbors 2 anytime soon. Completely bereft of any originality. It's one of the most damning shows of studio greed ever. It's like, let's take a completely benign property and make a sequel to it. Dumb and Dumber, at least, it in its own silly way has a cult following. Neighbors has no following. It was probably watched by sort of Maggie down the road every now and then, but no one really cares about it. And the sequel is just garbage, offensive, a completely horrific representation of real people, sorority girls, frat boys.
Okay, Chance, you have let me reset my timer.
15 seconds.
15-second rebuttal.
Neighbor 2 is actually a good movie. It does a lot of talk about the double standard between girls and men. Jack Efron's really good in it. Seth Rogen, Rose Byrne, they're all giving their all. Neighbor 2 is actually really solid, whereas Dumb and Dumber, there's nothing positive about that movie. It is just completely and utterly just awful.
And time. Andy, close us out here with your 15-second rebuttal.
I've not seen it, but Dumb and Dumber probably has some funny bits. There's probably a bit where he does a shit or something that's funny. Yeah. I mean, no, Neighbors 2 is not a good film at all, and it takes two groups of people who really exist. There's no one in the world would like Dumb and Dumber, but they take two who exist, and it completely offends them, and it's ridiculous, and it's human crap.
Okay, so let's go to the judges, and Doug, we're going to start with you. Who's getting your point here?
Yay! I feel like I belong in the plot of Dumber and Dumber when Harry met Lloyd. This is so bad. It's so hard. It's a really terrible movie. Oh my god. All right, so I unfortunately, because Andy didn't give enough to fire why Harry Met Lloyd was a better movie than Novers 2, I gotta give it to Chance.
All right, that's one for Chance. Max, we'll go to you next.
All right. Well, I actually enjoyed Neighbors 2. Dumb and Dumber is fucking terrible. It made me literally sick to my stomach. I hated that movie so much, but whatever. It's not about my personal opinions. It's about the arguments. But yes, Chance gave better points to counterattack Neighbors 2. Neighbors 2 does have good performances. Neighbors 2 does have some funny moments in it. Dumb and Dumber has zero redeeming qualities at all. Like, at all. It's terrible. So, yeah, Chance gets the point.
And with that, your winner with a score of 3-1 is Chance the Cobra Ellison. Great fight, guys.
Just to check, Andy, yeah, you haven't seen Neighbors 2 or Dumb and Dumber, have you?
Nope, none of them.
Okay. That's straight up not a fair question. What would you rather watch, a good movie or a terrible movie?
Man, the plot to When Harry Met Lloyd is them basically financing their special education fund in school.
That's exactly what it is.
The principal using them. It's so bad.
I'm glad it didn't come down to me because I haven't seen either of those movies either. But that is our fight, guys. Great battle. Came down to the speed round. And Doug, why don't you do our closing interviews here with our competitors?
All right. Let's go with the winner first. Chance, how you feeling, man? How you feeling about this match?
I feel pretty good. I feel bad for Andy just because the last question. It's that's a rough one to lose on, especially the speed round. But yeah, it's good to be back in the Battleground. I love doing this. I love just like arguing movies. So yeah, I mean it was a fun time, and props to my competitor.
All right, nice kind words from Chance. Andy, man, how you feeling? It came down to that speed round question. How you feeling?
I feel good. Sometimes I wonder why I do these things at 2:30 in the morning like it is now, but it is actually quite fun. I was glad to go against someone as good as Chance and sort of you guys to sort of test yourself against that sort of level. So that was cool. Round 1, I thought I gave a good fight. Was quite unlucky. Round 2, he had me on toast the whole time. Like I knew I was never going to beat Psycho. I was on his strings all the time. Got a point, and speed round. Like that shit, man. I could have just saved some breath, to be honest. But yeah, it was good fun. It was a nice time. So happy days.
Hey, you did better than I did on my last fight.
All right, passing it back to Kurt.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Before we go, where can we find you? Anywhere to plug? I'm just going to go down the road as you guys appear on my screen. Andy, let's start with you.
So be well versed by now that I usually don't answer this question fully, and I will continue to do that.
All right, no problem. Chance, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram at ChanceWars_91. Check out my personal YouTube channel, Chance the Critic. Check out my podcasts, PWCA and Notorious by Chance. And watch the Schmodown, join the Patreon, all that good stuff.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you to my judges. Appreciate all your help. You guys made this match go a lot easier for me tonight. And Doug, let's start with you. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me battling in all these leagues. Super excited for some of the stuff that's coming down the line with movie battlegrounds, with the different leagues and divisions that we're doing there. Just keep an eye out for Sons of the High Father.
All right, and Max.
All right. Well, you can find me Facebook, my name, Twitter, Max from Quebec, Instagram, Max from Quebec, Letterboxd, my name. My review for the great Child's Play 3 will be coming very soon. So look forward to that.
All right, everybody. My name's Kirk Holkowski. You can find me all over the place here on Full Metal. Follow me on Letterboxd, Kirk Kowal. And to my competitors, Chance and Andy, to my judges, Doug and Max, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed this watching this fight. Thank you for watching. Take care, everybody.